I had this phone call the other day. Actually, I was talking to my brother, and he works for a startup that they make buildings. They make small, portable buildings. And it's a startup, right? You know, less than 20 employees, everything's manual, right? But they're building buildings, okay, small, portable buildings. And he was talking about some of the challenges that the company faces, specifically around how unplanned downtime events cripple their ability to produce to plan. Okay, so as I understand it, these buildings are manufactured in primarily 4 manufacturing steps. And there might be a quality control step at the end, so maybe 5 quality control steps. There are different buildings manufactured, so they have different SKUs, okay? But they have 4 primary manufacturing steps. And at each of those steps, each of the bays or each of the areas in their facility, there's equipment that needs to be functioning. There's inventory they have to have in place, right? There are a lot of things they need. One of the steps is like a paint booth where they're sanding and painting and doing all the painting. And, you know, they had a scenario where the paint sprayer went down unexpectedly. And they literally had to stop all their work because they have no surge capacity in their facility, or maybe it's like one building. So if I build a unit and I move it to the next bay, and that one's kind of queued to be the next one in the next process. But so maybe it's one item of work in progress in between each of the manufacturing steps. Okay. So there's not a lot of surge capacity. And one of the things that my brother had told me was he was talking with someone at the organization. He was saying, listen, you know, this is the reason we need to be a digital company. And we need to start with just having our eyes on the full process, current status of the organization, current status of the manufacturing processes at each of the steps. Then, you know, we extend that to connecting to our equipment. And then we can monitor our equipment and we can predict failures in our equipment. And then from there we can extend to, you know, integrating the design process. So each of these buildings, there are many different designs for these buildings, right? And you could integrate the design process into this digital ecosystem. But he was saying the fundamental problem we have right now is we don't really know, we have no visibility into what we're doing unless we walk out on the floor and take a look. And the only way I know if the paint booth is going to fail is if we do some type of manual inspection at an interval or whatever, right? And all that costs money. And the response that the person he was talking to gave him was, well, we're too small to be digital, right? It's too early for that, or we're not ready for that. And my brother's response, like mine, was there's no such thing as not ready. I mean, the moment you create your company and you start, every time you put a smart thing, you know, you design your digital ecosystem, and every time you put something smart within the business, you're integrating it into your digital ecosystem every single time. You're connecting it. You're saying, here, hey, smart thing, you're going to go ahead and talk to our whatever, data store, our unified namespace, our ERP, our MES. So I wanted to talk about how being a digital company, when you're small, gives you the ability to remain hyper competitive and scale quickly. And I'm going to use Intellic integration as the example. Even though we weren't manufacturing anything, we still have operations, right? The very first thing, before I ever had any employees, so before anyone worked at Intellic, I had a digital ecosystem stood up. I had, from the business side, from the let's go ERP layer side, I had a tool that I had built. We call it TMS, Time Management System. It's really a combination of an ERP and manufacturing execution system for service businesses. So within that system, all of our clients are listed there, projects, all the tasks within the projects, all of the engineers and project and architects. Each project has a lead architect assigned to it. In terms of all the raw events, it's all the time entries. So the comments from each day from each developer. So you have a short comment, you have long comments, you have the hours, you have travel, you have incidental spending. There's all the raw events from the ERP and MES layer for a systems integrator in that digital system. And it's in the cloud and anybody can access it from anywhere. Each employee has their own login and role level, and depending upon what their role is, they can get to different pieces of information, right? Then from all those raw events, we convert those into KPIs. So things like all the dashboards, the utilization rate. So what percentage of hours that an engineer has available to bill, can they bill, or have they been billing? Shows open orders, so the total number of billable hours that are in our backlog. I mean, all the KPIs, if you think about all the stuff I have in my board meetings, all the KPIs that decision makers need are all calculated within that system. That system was built before I ever had an employee. So from the very first day of operation, every single event from day one is being captured. All the key events have been captured from the very first day. Okay? And that system's has been extended. We've added features to it, but that system has existed since the day we opened. There was never a day where we ran on a spreadsheet. Number two, we have a project management system, which is really meant for just the architects. So it's where the architects, think of it as DevOps. We used an open source DevOps tool. Now that was in place before I ever had an employee. The idea was nothing was going to be manual. And that system was in place from day one. And those two systems are integrated. When we added in our CRM, so when we use Zoho CRM. So when we added in the Zoho CRM a year after we opened, the Zoho CRM was constructed as an extension of the way our TMS system is built. So a project number in our business, there is a project number in the Zoho CRM. It starts out as an estimate and then moves to a project. That integrates with the project that's in the TMS system. We don't use these dashboards anymore, but we used to. The raw events are still there, but we just don't use the dashboards. No one ever looked at them. We would look at, say, the top 10 project. They had a dashboard that showed the top 10 projects that are closing in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And that was reported in the TMS system. So any engineer, any project manager, any architect, they knew both what they were currently working on and what's coming down the pipeline without having to get on the phone with somebody or whatever, right? All of those systems, save the Zoho system, which we extended later, and there are many other systems we've extended, many more features we've extended over the course that we were in business, was all an extension of the original digital ecosystem that was in place the day I had our first employee start. Now, I didn't know ultimately where that would grow to. I didn't know ultimately what our digital ecosystem would look like long term, because it's a living thing. It iterates, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But I did know I had to start from someplace. And that someplace was the digital representation of our business. A lot of people call it digital twin. I hate that term. Digital twin is just like a snapshot of a business. It's not a visual representation of the business. Moreover, digital twins are focused much more on operations, just the things that are happening on the plant floor, or in this case, in a service business with just the engineers. I look at digital ecosystems as full stack. All the features that I was ever going to care about, from machine learning and artificial intelligence at the top to the raw event aggregation and conversion at the bottom. So my point is this: had I not been a digital company from day one, you think about all the permutations that came out of that. Because we were fully digital on day one, we were able to do two things. Number one, we were able to compete against other integrators who weren't digital, who still required their employees go on site 50% of the time. Our engineers travel like 10% of the time, maybe even less. And it's been that way since the first day we were in business. We just don't travel a lot. Why? Because we're a digital business. Anywhere in the world we can be connected. Everybody's been able to work remotely if they wanted to, even though we have this, these awesome offices here and we just doubled our office space. Our customers, our clients were able to integrate into our ecosystem and have visibility into the status of their projects, be able to open tickets related to their projects from day one. Not once we were in business for 10 years and we could afford to spend millions of dollars building this up, but on day one, we were able to do that. That was what the whole idea of an Industry 4.0 integrator was. When I created IntelliC Integration, when I put down on paper what I'm going to create here, it wasn't, I just want to sell labor and I want to be the guy in charge or whatever. It was, no, there's a better way to do this. There's a better way to run an integrator than the way integrators are running. And what are all those things? This manufacturer that my brother works for, same thing. The owner of that company should have sat down and said, not just what are we going to build and what are we going to sell, but what type of manufacturer are we going to be? There's a better way to manufacture. There's a better way to do this. And what does that look like from a digital perspective? The decision I made to be a digital company from day one has made all the difference in the world, and in terms of our ability to scale, take our message to the world, be able to go from handling small projects to huge projects. Because we were built on a sound digital infrastructure, we could scale from projects of one or two engineers to projects of 20 engineers with no problem. So the message here is, you can't afford to not be a digital company. Like, there are people who say, and I suspect it's my brother, the company my brother works for, saying right now we can't really afford to be digital. The answer is you can't afford not to be. Everything you do needs to be an extension of your digital ecosystem, because the most valuable commodity in your business is data. Doesn't matter what you make. Data is the most valuable commodity in your business. And that is the mindset you have to have. And that was the mindset I had on day one. And it's made all the difference in the world. It's made all the difference in the world.